Welcome to the DFL Breakdown, presented by GrizLeeGear, with your hosts, Lucas Ford and Ricky Epperson.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the DFL Breakdown, the number one cartoon side character themed, league-specific, weekly fantasy football podcast in the world. It's me. Quick episode for you here this week, guys. Gonna be pushing this one out same time as usual, but recording in a little bit different time. So just gonna try to blast through this one and make sure that we get all the action from this past week covered and make sure everybody knows what's going on as we head into week 9 in the DFL. We did have a crazy week, some terrible injuries. I'll just say it right now. Cam Scadaboo's leg, that ankle injury was terrible and super sad to see. And that was just one of many things that happened this week. A ton of tight matches in the DFL as well, and I am excited to break them down. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it, and we can talk about what happened in week 8 in the DFL.
Dimmadome Fantasy.
That's right, Scott. Thanks so much. GAMEBREAKER time.
I'm coming! Here I come! GAMEBREAKER.
All right, it was another massive week for Jonathan Taylor. Another 3-touchdown performance. The Titans have been super soft on almost everyone this year, but especially Jonathan Taylor. This is his second time doing that this year alone. 30-plus points in multiple games this year. He has been dominant and definitely carrying Alex's team, at least a large portion of it, on his back here. So Jonathan Taylor is going to be... Oh my goodness, this might be super embarrassing here. I'm pretty sure he won. He's not the game breaker. He was didn't quite get there here, so it's not going to be Jonathan Taylor. I know that Leemon had a great performance out of Jordan Love, but that wasn't quite enough for him. And Troy Franklin had a massive performance in his game, but it wasn't enough for Riley to get the win either. So Tucker Kraft for Chris was a great one here, but unshown also was Myles Garrett, who I believe scored like 35, 36 from the defensive position from the IDP flex. So we'll go ahead and call Tucker Kraft and Myles Garrett our dual game breakers for 2 people here. Chris getting the game breaker from his tight end and Dylan getting the defensive game breaker there. Myles Garrett had 5 sacks on the Patriots in that loss for the Browns. The Patriots still managed to win that one in convincing fashion, but Myles Garrett was doing his damnedest to make it any other way there, and he had a lot of success on the day and scored a ton of fantasy points and looked good doing it, but it's not helping the Browns win any games at this point. So, yeah, and Tucker Kraft, man, Sunday Night Football looked like an animal. Just catches the ball and is like guaranteed for 20 extra yards after the catch because nobody can bring him down, and he's looking to stiff-arm you. So, really good stuff out of that. Chris has been excited to see that out of Tucker Kraft. All right, let's get into the score summary, and we can talk about these matchups more specifically.
Score summary.
All right, yeah, I mentioned Myles Garrett wasn't pictured, but man, 43 points for him here. Yeah, 5 QB hits, 5 sacks, and then 6 tackles on top of that with a forced fumble. He was everywhere. Definitely the game breaker of the week with a 43-point week for Dylan in his 160-point to 70-point smackdown of Ricky this week. Got 32 points out of Bo Nix, 4 out of Quinshon Judkins, who did end up getting injured in that game and leaving early. 5 out of Travion Henderson, 21 out of Jamar Chase. He also started Gadsden this week. I don't know if he picked him up this week, but that might have also been waiver warrior action. The 17th leading into it. Yeah, I believe it was. I ain't checking, so I'm just going to give it to you.
Waiver warrior.
Good job, Dylan. You put in the waiver warrior of the week. 18.7 points for you there from Gadsden. A huge week for you guys there, and a big loss for Ricky. Just not showing up. Pretty disappointing stuff. Only 11 points out of Caleb Williams, 2 out of Jordan Mason, less than 10 points out of Christian McCaffrey, which seems completely alien this season. Has not done that at all. Look at all this. 22 plus guaranteed every week into a 9.8. So pretty disappointing there. Didn't get anything good out of Mooney. Only 11 points out of T. Higgins. Just disappointment all around for Ricky there with a 70-point total, getting absolutely smacked down by Dylan, bringing them both to 9 and 7 on the year. So pretty crazy stuff there. They're looking to be in the top half with this positive record for the both of them. Let's talk about the matchup I mentioned with Chris as well. He did manage to win this one here. It was a 1-1 victory. Didn't quite get to the median for him, so you know what that means.
Wet noodle fight of the week.
This one was a slapper here. It just didn't quite get to the heat that we're expecting out of the Retardinals. Chris has been riding a hot streak as well, but, bad stuff in the quarterback department can kind of do this to you. Dak Prescott, only 6.6 points for Chris. Kirk Cousins making a quick spot start for Sal on this one. Only 7 points there. Just wasn't a lot to build off of here. Bijan Robinson, this was such a weird decision by the Falcons against the beat-up Dolphins, who have looked terrible this year and had one of the worst run defenses so far. They didn't give Bijan Robinson the ball basically at all. He had 5 carries in the first half, 9 carries in total, only 3 receptions. This is your number one weapon, and you can't work him into the game against a team that's supposed to have a soft defense against him. What are the Falcons? Who knows? Bill not getting a big performance for Sal here. Another kind of disappointing thing there. That was a defensive battle, the Chiefs versus the Commanders, and Bill did not come out on top there. Only 9 carries, 25 yards, not very involved in the passing game. James Cook had a massive day for Chris, 33.6 points. Could have almost been a game breaker in himself, but on a week like this week where there was a bunch of pop-off performances, he didn't quite get there here. Still got 2 touchdowns and over 200 yards on the day. Broke a franchise record that had been held by O.J. Simpson all this time, so James Cook gets one over on the Juice Man. We've got Ladd McConkey getting 22 points for Chris here, beating out the 17 that Tet got for Sal in that wide receiver 1 position there. 6 receptions for Ladd for 88 yards and a touchdown in their beatdown of the Vikings last Thursday. A lot of good stuff here for Chris. Like I said, he didn't quite get to the median, though. It was because of these missing performances from Nick Benito, Rico Dowdle, and Jake Ferguson. In almost every other league, got 0 points. He got a point here because it looks like he got a tackle after an interception. So that's pretty fun to see in our league. But not going to do it for Chris to get to the median there. I believe my team, we'll talk about my matchup next, but my score, I think it was like right at 130, was the 6th place position for the week. So anything under that, gonna be getting that median loss, which means 1-1 for Chris here, bringing him to technically 9-7. It's 8-6-2, but it's 9-7 like the other 2 guys, tied with those guys. I believe that puts him in 4th place. And Sal is at 11-5, has dropped a couple games recently, but is going to be coming out of his bye weeks. and hopefully looking to return to form there. He's at 11-5. I believe he's in third. We'll talk about the standings soon. All right, I did mention we were going to talk about my match up next. It's the Ball Hogs versus Riley and the Better Off Gooning. Baker Mayfield sold for him this week. I got the 2-0 victory, just barely hanging on to it here. And Riley takes the 0-2 loss home on this one. Started the best wide receiver on the week, Troy Franklin, which isn't a sentence I was expecting to say this season, but it's true. He got 2 touchdowns on 6 receptions for 89 yards. A great day for him in their beatdown of the Cowboys. Those guys just straight up do not have a defense, and that has been awesome for fantasy players going against Dallas. And Troy Franklin is no exception, getting 26.9 points. He had a lot of great stuff here. Both of his Cowboys were good for him. Javonte Williams beat projections, got 18 points. George Pickens got about 15. He got 14 from George Kittle and 13 from, his favorite new IDP that he's picked up that just got extended with the Patriots. Mr. Marcus Jones has been scoring well for him in the last few weeks here. Got 13.5 out of him, but yeah, the 4 points out of Baker Mayfield, didn't throw any touchdowns. It was kind of not really a great day for their offense. Their defense did most of the work versus the Saints there. So Baker kind of took the day off, and that definitely hurt him in the end here, as opposed to me with MVP Josh Allen getting 25 points out of my quarterback. Not the craziest thing. It wasn't even what he was projected, but always nice to just be getting good chunks of points from your QB. I put in Combani Vidal again this week. He's been great since I picked him up off waivers and Omari and Hampton went down. He's completely taken over that backfield. He gets a little bit involved in the passing game, not a ton, but got a reception and had over 100 yards on the ground and a touchdown again. Derrick Henry, good game for him. 2 touchdowns on 71 yards. He was getting rolling again, and they won that game versus the Bears even without Lamar Jackson, which is a huge deal for them. So with Lamar coming back, I'm hoping to see more Derrick Henry dominance. Jordan Addison with 11.6 points, only 26 yards, but caught a touchdown. Seems to do that pretty frequently. Love that guy. Keenan Allen with 8 points. It was kind of an unproductive day for him on that Thursday night football game, despite the fact that they won so handily. I'm hoping, it seems like when the situation is at its toughest, that's when they get the ball to Keenan. So with an easy win like that, it's understandable that it wasn't for him there. But I'm hoping this matchup this week maybe provides a little more of a challenge and they get Keenan more involved. Harold Fannin, this guy has been huge for me, and I'm really excited to see it. He got 18.4 points in that brutal loss against the Patriots there. He got their only touchdown on the day and is a favorite target of Dylan Gabriel, who's been there. So 6 receptions for 62 yards. He's just kind of their dump-off option, and he catches everything. So You love to see that. 18.4 points out of a tight end, especially a rookie tight end that was on nobody's radar. Love this guy. Kayshon Boutte has been awesome since I picked him up, too. He was even awesome the week before I picked him up. He's had a really nice hot 3-game streak here, and I'm hoping that it continues. Drake has just been lighting him up, and therefore he's lighting it up in my lineup as well. So great to see out of that. Jalen Warren was 9.3 points, and then really disappointed in my 2 IDP guys here, only getting me a point each, making this a lot closer than it needed to be. But Riley only got a point at a Zaire Franklin as well, so it kind of all evens out in the end. Like I said, big 2-0 win for me there. Big week. I'm getting back to 500, and I need this momentum. I'm trying to catch up with those guys ahead of me here. We're only a week away from 4th place if my cards are to fall right here, but I don't want to rely on luck at the end of the season. I want to just get in. So let's get to it, ball hogs. All right, tough stuff for Riley there, but he takes the 0-2, moves down to 5-11. Let's talk about the Niners versus the Bower of London. We are not quite getting Brock Bowers back for Eric, but it didn't seem to matter. He scored the most points on the week, got a great performance out of Patrick Mahomes, and took home the 2-0 dub here against the number one team in the league, the AZ 69ers. This was a huge upset performance, and it's funny. This was maybe one of the ones that Ricky and I wrote off the most. Doing the podcast last week and watching it, be like, yeah, Alex win this one by a landslide, but here goes Eric, man. 33.4 points out of Saquon, 30 points out of Patrick Mahomes. He got 23.5 points out of Michael Pittman. Terry McLaurin had a touchdown and some receptions for him. DJ Moore had a nice productive day. Zach Bond got him almost 20 points. And Tyke Smith has been great for him as well here, getting 9 there. A huge day for him, and he got it really all put together. Even his quote-unquote low performers just barely missed expectation, and just a lot of good stuff from him. Leemon was right behind him, Alex was right behind him there, with Jonathan Taylor scoring all those points that we talked about in the Game Breaker segment. We had Daniel Jones also scoring 30 points. Breece Hall got 2 touchdowns and threw another one. Had a crazy day there. CeeDee Lamb, 14.6 points. But Quentin Johnston didn't get a single target in that game versus Minnesota on Thursday. Dalton Schultz only got 4 points for him in a tight end spot here. And Deebo Samuel on Monday night had a pretty bad deflected pass that went off of his helmet and right into the hands of Kansas City. So depressing stuff there. Only 5 points out of TJ Watt. That's a difficult one for Alex. Beat his own projections and still lost. Taking home the 1-1 on that one, bringing him to 12-4. And this elevates the Bower of London out of the bottom here, moving him to 5-11. Now tied with a few others there. But great matchup for Eric. I can't stress enough. Last week I was like, Alex wins this one easy. Shouldn't be hard to predict. And turns out you can't predict anything in fantasy football. Okay, we've got these matchups broken down here. Just a couple more to go through. It was Leemon versus Nate this week, and they had an extremely close one. Leemon with the absolute heartbreaker, just missing the median by a point and getting the 0-2 on the week, moving down to 5-11. That means that Nate got the 2-0 and moved up to 5-11. And if you'll remember, that is where Eric is at now as well, after doing the math with his ties. So we've got everything kind of locked up at the bottom of the boards here. The result of this match was driven by Jalen Hurts getting 4 touchdowns through the air. It was just a great passing day for him. Saquon got a ton of work too, so it was just a great day for the Eagles. There was a lot of sketchy stuff happening in that Eagles-Giants game. It was one of the worst officiated games I've seen in a long time, so definitely need to get that cleaned up. But the Eagles aren't going to complain because they won handily. Jordan Love did score more points than Jalen Hurts there at 34.3, but he was let down by his other Packer, Josh Jacobs. Only scored 13 points in this one. Isaiah Pacheco on Monday night, he was depending on him to get him there. He only got 5.8 out of him. And Kendrick Bourne only got 7.4 for them on 3 receptions. Whereas on the other side, Rashee Rice is getting you 24.5. Chase Brown's getting you 25.5. Brian Burns with 10, who matched Leemon's IDP there. Caden Ellis, 16.5 for Leemon. This one's just depressing because Mims only gives you 1.8 on when you needed him in a waiver wire spot. I know he's been holding Calvin Austin pretty much all season, and he only got you 6.8, and there wasn't really a lot you could do with your bench here either, so it's not like you made any bad decisions. just a tough loss in some bye weeks for Leemon, and he's not going to get it done on this one. Nate did put it together. Even Mason Taylor getting flexed for him. The double tight end strat did work out for him here, and that is a big deal. I think, we had some movement happen right after the games here, which we'll talk about as we get to the waiver wire and trade segment. But this might be the last time you see Stevenson let down El Presidente, Lord Biden. All right, we got one more matchup to go over here. That's the apple-bottom Jeans versus the Sleepers. Corey taking home the 2-0 win on this one in convincing fashion, and the Sleepers dropping 0-2 here. It was 153 to 115. Drake May was great for Corey, 31.2 points for him there. Got 20 points out of Achan, what seems to have become routine for him there. Scadaboo got 10 points and a touchdown before his season ended here. Thanks for leaving us on at least a passable fantasy performance. And rest up, Cam Scadaboo. We want to see you next year. But it's going to be a long road with the way his foot was hanging off of his leg. That was gross. DK Metcalf, 16.5 points. He got 22 points out of Travis Kelce, who had 6 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. Jefferson was fine for him. No touchdown, but 7 receptions for 74 yards. Josh Downs had 3 receptions, and one of them was a touchdown, so that's big for him. And 9 receptions for Rashid Shaheed. He got a ton of volume in this game, which is surprising to see. He's normally guaranteed locked in for 4 receptions. 11.5 points out of his IDP combination down here. Not really anything to write home about, but was just about equivalent to what Micah Parsons and Nick Bolton put up for Artie there, so nothing to complain about. On the other side, Fields did get the start, despite the fact that all week we were thinking it was going to be Tyrod Taylor, and he won that game versus the Bengals. 22.8 points for Artie here. J.K. Dobbins hit his projection. DeAndre Swift did the same, and even Chris Olave was doing it for him there too. But only 11 out of Stephon Diggs, 3 out of Dalton Kincaid, 8 out of Micah Parsons. It was just kind of an average week for a lot of his guys here, and that ended up only scoring him 115 points, which just isn't good enough. So gonna drop 0-2 on this one. Didn't have a lot of choices except for Dallas Goedert on his bench, who could have given him another 15 points or so, maybe gotten him close to the median, but unfortunately didn't quite get there. So 0-2 for Artie on this one in his little bipocalypse, and 2-0 for Corey, who's picking up some momentum and trying to carry this into the second half here. Big week for him after he made the trade for Drake May. He has been reaping the rewards here. All right, that does it for last week's matchups here. Let's talk about the standings real quick before we move on. It's still Alex in sole possession of first place up top at 12-4. We've got a tie at second with Sal coming in, and then Artie both at 11-5. We've got 3 players at 9-7. It's technically Chris who scored the most fantasy points in 4th place, and then Ricky in 5th. Dylan, who's had a whole week of points subtracted from him, in 6th place there because of it. Could definitely impact him down the line here. Almost lost all his points this week before he got us a very late last-minute picture. Corey in 7th place at 8-8. The only 500 record on the season so far, and he's on the outside looking in, but knocking on the door. Only half a week behind here. And then the Ball Hogs right behind him there. We are at 7-9 and the only team in that position. After that, we've got a 4-way tie at the bottom. It's Leemon, it's Riley, it's Nate, and it's Eric, all at 5-11. Eric is actually showing in last place, but in ninth place due to points scored. And then it is Leemon straight after that. 11th place for Riley, and last place for Nate El Presidente, Lord Biden. Even after the 2-0 week, he's got an incredibly low score so far and a lot of work to do. But, he's only a week behind where I'm at here, and I'm only a week behind 4th place. So a couple good weeks could jettison these guys all the way to the top of the standings. Not the tippy top, but the top half, and anything is still possible for everyone here. No one's out of it, and this has been one of the tightest races so far this year, out of any of the years I've seen in the Dimmadome. I think that's been the nature of the games. People are talking about how this year seems like anybody could win MVP. Everyone's dropping games. Everyone's winning games. The Jets finally won a game, so we have no more winless teams and no more teams that are undefeated. And it's it seems like any given Sunday is extra prescriptive for this year, and it's been surprising to say the least. So that's where a lot of this mix-up is happening. These guys that do bad one week seem to do good the next week and flop back and forth. The Falcons can go from beating the Bills to losing to the Panthers and back again. It's totally crazy. So cool to see how that is shaking out in the standings. All right, let's get to the waiver wire and trade segment here and power through that. We got a couple things to talk about in there, and then we can get to week 9 in the DFL shortly after. But until then, waiver wire and trades.
Waiver wire and trades.
Okay, with Cam Scadaboo going down, the prize, the belle of the ball on the waivers was Tyrone Tracy, who was just dropped last week by Leemon. Feels bad. 5 claims were put in for him. I did, Ricky did, Leemon did, and Riley did, but Alex is the one coming home with Tyrone Tracy here, dropping Dalton Schultz and getting him plugged in. We saw Saquon Barkley tweak his groin during that game and leaving after some point in the 4th quarter, I believe. Tank Bigsby pretty much had a whole quarter of football to work with there and got almost like 97 yards or something crazy there. So people wanted him as well. And Chris managed to get him. I put a claim in for him as well. Didn't quite get there. Chris getting them and dropping Blake Corum for Tank. My consolation prize on the week is Colston Loveland. The Bears are playing the Bengals, so I'm hoping that is a good matchup tight end. It's Harold Fannon's bye week, so had to look at some options. Dropped Evan Neal to pick up Colston Loveland. Malik Washington getting picked up by Dylan. Riley also had a claim in for him, but didn't quite get there. And then we've got some IDP movement here with the Detroit Lions linebacker here, Jack Campbell, getting picked up for Sal. Devin Singletary going to Riley. Seems like he put in some claims for some of the other hotter running backs and everything here, but didn't quite get him. So there's his consolation prize. It's Mr. Singletary. And Bashal Tootin getting picked up for Sal after dropping his Kirk Cousins spot start replacement. There was also a couple moves directly after waivers ran. I like to get these if I can here. I don't talk about all the free agency moves, but if someone is waking up early and making a flurry of moves after not submitting waiver claims, kind of almost counts as the same thing. It's like a last place waiver. Christian Kirk, Dylan Sampson, and Brian Branch all getting picked up by Leemon early in the morning, dropping off Mims, dropping off Luther Burden, dropping off Caden Ellis, who were disappointing for him this week rather. Nate also picking up Aaron Rodgers. I believe he is starting him this week, but we will see if that is the case when we get to the projection preview. Should be an interesting matchup for him, to say the least. Aaron Rodgers has had a couple blow-up weeks, so could be good there. Samaje Perine was great in that Bengals game. I think he got a couple touchdowns and broke off a run. He had a bunch of long stuff there. And so Alex was interested in that and wanted to get his action there. So picked up Samaje Perine. There was also that trade that I mentioned here. I didn't take a screenshot of it when it happened, and I also didn't scroll all the way back to find it, so going to have to forgive this extremely cropped version of it here. This was the big trade. It was Nate and Dylan. They sent it through after games started on Sunday, clarifying that they wanted it to take place after all the games finished. So we waited to process it, but they had agreed to it, so sent it through. It was Quinshawn Judkins, Emeka Egbuka, and Travion Henderson getting trade from Dylan to Nate for Jahmyr Gibbs and Ramondre Stevenson. I'm excited about this trade. I think it's a good one for both sides. Some exciting OSU rookies heading their way over to Nate, and Jahmyr Gibbs and Ramondre Stevenson shoring up Dylan's running back issues and woes there. So a good trade, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see who ends up benefiting more from it here. What we can say is that Dylan's been on a little bit of a hot streak, and he's in the middle of the pack with the leaderboard here. So if this ends up benefiting him, it could push him even further up into the playoffs seeding. So Nate trying to get some momentum and move some things around. He did get his 2-0 win this week, and trying to get off the bottom of the leaderboard. It's still possible for you, buddy. I'd love to see it. And maybe this is just what you needed. So that is a big trade here. Let us know down in the comments who won the trade. Get in the comments. All right, great stuff there. That's all of our waiver wire and trades. I think I might have talked about this last week. Maybe not. Caleb Williams for Jaden Higgins. I was dropping that guy straight as soon as I think we talked about it. All right. Let's move into the projection preview and talk about Week 9 Dimmadome action.
Projection preview.
All right. We got the Ball Hogs versus the Apple Bottom Jeans. Me versus Corey, the brothers matchup here. An exciting one. Josh Allen versus Drake May heads up. That should be fun to see. They're not playing against each other this week, but we are here. And the comparison for Drake May for everyone is kind of Josh Allen light. So if he can outscore Josh Allen this week, that's definitely one of the keys to victory for Corey here. I still got Kamani Vidal going. I got Derrick Henry going. That's kind of been my running back core for the last couple weeks. Jaylen Warren also getting plugged in my flex spot. So running 3 running backs there. Travis Hunter is back from bye. Andrew Van Ginkel is back from injury. That's the way I want my IDP spot to look every week, so I'm hoping that it can stay this way for these two guys, and I can just keep plugging them in. We've got Keyshawn Boutte still going. It's hard for me to take him out of the lineup. I do have, Marvin Harrison coming back off of bye against Dallas. It's probably a better matchup and probably someone I should be putting in. But it just feels so hard to try to take Boutte out. Keenan Allen also getting started versus Tennessee. That's a super soft matchup. And Addison getting started versus Detroit. That should be a high-scoring game we're hoping here. So, don't really know what to do about that, but this is how I've got it going right now. It's a pretty close projection here, only 2 points off in favor of Corey. He does have Kareem Hunt and Devon Achane going and has his running back department, has Drake May at the QB, and Metcalf, Jefferson, Downs, and Shaheed going for his wide receivers and flexes here. who have been pretty dependable for him so far. And Travis Kelce's also in that afternoon Chiefs-Bills game that we talked about with Josh Allen here. So Josh Allen, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, all in that same game, and all very impactful for us here. We're also going to be watching on two of our IDP guys, Foyesade Oluokun and Travis Hunter, on defense against the Raiders. But good news for me is I also get those offensive points for Travis. All right, yeah, it's a close one. I mean, gosh, I really need to win this one here. This is going to mean a lot. It has a ton of implications for the season. And Corey has been hot here, but I'm hoping he cools off. We're going to find out a lot of it tonight with a heads-up running back matchup between Devon Achane and Derrick Henry. In that Thursday night Ravens versus Dolphins football game in Florida. That is definitely a big deal for us and should be exciting to watch. I'm hoping it's all run game for the Ravens, and the Dolphins are behind and have to pass a ton. So we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition here. In fact, just to make it extra heads up, I'm swapping them around so they are matched up against each other here. Achane versus Henry. Okay, let's talk about the 69ers versus El Presidente, Lord Biden here. He is putting Aaron Rodgers in to start versus Daniel Jones. And that is the matchup that they have as well in real life and in fantasy. Rodgers versus Jones, the Steelers versus the Colts. And with the way the Colts have been going, it's got to be Colts favored. He's got, Alex has Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor still going, as we've mentioned multiple times this year, riding that hot streak for those guys. And he's hoping to do more of the same. He's projected 154 points, which is a ton, man. CeeDee Lamb getting put in, Kyron Williams back off bye, Tyrone Tracy with the backfield to himself. Just got options on options on options, even starting Deebo Samuel this week, with A.J. Brown possibly still injured. Massive projection for him there. Only 119 projection for Nate here. And is there a specific reason why he's still starting Alec Iomenor, who's, been fine for him? Darius Slayton was kind of disappointing this week. Hunter Henry getting plugged in. Yeah, a lot of question marks here, so you can see why the projections are so favored towards Alex. I'll fall for the trap again. I think Alex wins this one. But let's see if Nate can prove us wrong. Let's talk about Ricky, who's changed his name to the FBI, versus the Tampa Trap House. He is investigating what's been happening here. Big projections for both of these guys as well. 151 for Chris, 145 for Ricky. Hoping for a return to form for CMC. We've got Devontae Adams coming back off of bye. T. Higgins still in there. Trey McBride coming back off of bye as well. For that Monday night game versus Dallas. God, he should feast there. Jameson Williams coming off of bye here, and Roquan Smith playing in that game tonight versus Miami. Chris, on the other hand, he's got Bijan Robinson going versus New England Sunday at 1 o'clock. That's a home game for New England, so we'll see. And they've been amazing versus the run so far this year. Could be a tough week for Bijan. We've got meth head Dak Prescott going in that Monday night game we've mentioned a few times. We've got James Cook going in that afternoon game versus Kansas City. And Ladd McConkey versus the beatable Titans. We've also got Jalen Waddle versus the Ravens in that game tonight. Tucker Kraft versus the Panthers. Wan'Dale Robinson versus the Niners. He's also got Khalil Shakir in that same Kansas City game. And his two IDP guys who he hasn't been shying away from. Kyle Hamilton in that game tonight. And Nick Benito versus Houston on Sunday here. It's a close projection. Chris is taking the projection lead here. But I got to be honest, I haven't seen Ricky put up such a crap week like he did last week in a long time, and he normally kind of bounces back from that stuff. So we'll see if he bounces back here. I'm gonna go ahead and give him the podcast nod. I think he wins this one this week versus the Trap House. We'll see if they can both get their median on this one. All right, we've got Artie versus the Retardinals. Sal is still going with Sam Darnold here. Got him back off of bye in his stack with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Looks like Puka Nacua should be back and playing versus the Saints. Genty coming in off of bye as well. Bam Knight in that Monday night game getting a spot start at running back. He picked him up a few weeks ago, but he's kind of the lead back right now with everyone else injured. Should be getting a lot of action versus Dallas. Tyler Warren, Kamir Dike, who's been kind of good so far the last couple weeks, which has been pretty crazy. We'll see if he continues to do that for them here. He's also got Tet McMillan going. You know, he had a few guys in his IDP slots named Set and Forget, and none of them are here anymore, which is pretty surprising, you know? They were supposed to be just locked in for the season, and now they're not even locked into his roster here, so Quay Walker and Jack Campbell getting the starts. We'll see if they're enough for Sal. I got to be honest, with JSN and Puka Nacua coming back for him, I don't see anybody beating Sal when those two guys are healthy and playing the way they've been playing this year, and I don't think Artie is the exception. He does have Jared Goff going with his running back core, J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift. Amon-Ra St. Brown coming back off the bye. Nico Collins getting back in there. He's still got Dalton Kincaid going, and Stephon Diggs, as well as Chris Olave, Micah Parsons, and Nick Bolton. They're both going to definitely be interested in that same Kansas City game, but also the Minnesota game is going to play the Lions and Vikings game is going to be pretty impactful for a lot of people there. And I think he'll score well this week with all of his guys coming back. You know, he got to make his choices with who he wanted to start, with everyone besides Goddard here and Justin Fields. But I think that is for the best. And he'll probably beat the median, but I think Sal takes this one home with a 2-0 week, possibly moving into first. Let's talk about Eric versus Dylan. Eric has just terrible projections on this one, and it's because both of his IDPs are on bye. Also doesn't have Saquon Barkley or Kate Otten going. He's going to have to make some moves, unfortunately, and drop some of these guys or drop some of these guys on his bench to get some IDP guys going, or he will never make it, especially with how hot Dylan has been recently. Still got Bo Nix going, Jahmyr Gibbs and Ramondre Stevenson, his new acquisitions, getting fired up and running back. Gadsden, who just looks to all of a sudden be extremely dependable, getting fired up at tight end as well. Xavier Worthy and Jamar Chase, got to be excited about that. And then you got your waiver pickup, Malik Washington, going tonight here. See if he ends up being waiver warrior again. Anzalone going in, and TJ Edwards for IDPs, and he's got Cortland Sutton as well. So definitely projected to take this one, only at 140, which isn't like the lowest, and definitely would have been median wins the last few weeks. So I'm projecting him to take it here. Eric's got to make some moves, or he's going to get left in the dust. He does have Patrick Mahomes going, but Nick Chubb and Tony Pollard definitely leaves things to be desired here for Eric in the running back department. Drake London was injured last week. We'll see if he plays this week. We'll see if Michael Pittman stays hot, and if Brock Bowers can finally get it going for the namesake team for him here in the Dimmadome. Cooper Kupp in that Sunday night game. It's Seattle versus Washington. Not in Washington, but in Washington. And that should be an interesting game for Sunday Night Football. And then DJ Moore versus the Bengals. You're just hoping that they can feast on that there. But yeah, I'm thinking that Dylan takes this one unless some serious moves are made and we get some big slappers here in the IDP department. All right, we got one more game here. It is Chief Trump versus Better Off Gooning. That's Riley versus Leemon. We've got a projection that slightly favors Riley here and full lineups on both sides. So it's not that anybody needs to make some moves. It's just that Leemon is not projected to get a lot. He's only got a few bears in here. Roma Dunze and Kyle Monungai talking about that Bengals matchup, trying to highlight that and benefit from it here. He's got his two Packers and Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs, hoping that those guys do well versus the Panthers, who've been historically a gold mine for fantasy points, but this year have actually been passable here, so we'll see what happens with that. Got Brian Thomas coming back in after the bye. He's still questionable. He's still dealing with the shoulder injury. We'll see if he does play this week. He was limited in practice, and that's definitely concerning for Leemon. Kyle Pitts, also questionable, but getting fired up versus New England. A.J. Barner, another tight end. He's doing the double tight end strat here. And then Calvin Austin also getting fired up as well. Max Crosby back off bye is big for him, and he went and got Brian Branch back after dropping him, after having that suspension. No one else went and picked him up, so going back to Leemon there and getting him fired up here. So we'll see if that's enough for Leemon, or if the return of Lamar Jackson tonight is just too much to overcome for him there. Riley's got him going. Riley's got David Montgomery going versus the Vikings. Javonte Williams and George Pickens, his little Dallas core there on Monday night. Keon Coleman also getting fired up versus Kansas City. We got George Kittle, Troy Franklin, Trey Tucker, Byron Young, and Marcus Jones. So a strong-looking team. Honestly, Riley looks solid there, and if he gets good quarterback performance, he can definitely win games. We saw that last week. That even with a 4-point Baker performance, he was at almost 120 points, so definitely good stuff for him there. He can definitely win this one if he puts his mind to it here, but if not, Leemon may sneak up and take it. But I'll give it to Riley here just because Leemon is cursed. All right, that's all of our matchups for Week 9. Should be an exciting one, to say the least. Like I said, our standings are still all clumped up. We've got a ton of ties in here, and a lot of separation to be made. So it should be an interesting week. And I'm excited for this game tonight. The Dolphins versus the Ravens has a ton of fantasy implications for everybody. But look, until then, guys, I hope you enjoy the game. I did want to say thanks for listening. It's time to head to the outro as we wrap up this episode of the DFL Breakdown. Week 8 in the books, moving into Week 9. Can't wait to see how it all shakes out. Love you guys. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the DFL Breakdown. Tune in next week for more.